Before we begin, consider this your warning. What you're about to hear isn't gossip, it's courtroom reality, and it's deeply disturbing. In the middle of Sean Diddy Combs' federal trial, just when things couldn't get more volatile, a leaked audio recording dropped, and it featured Kanye West. The moment it played, everything changed. Now, the case isn't just about Diddy. It's about who else was involved, who stayed silent, and how deep this cover-up really goes. It started with a flash drive, no press leak, no anonymous tip. Just a silent transfer of evidence in a federal courtroom already on edge. Diddy's trial was 3 weeks deep, crawling through mountains of financial records and witness testimony when the prosecution halted everything with a single line. "We have new audio." The judge didn't blink, he simply ordered the room sealed. What followed wasn't just a procedural motion, it was a detonation. Inside that courtroom, everyone from reporters to defense counsel watched as a tech assistant loaded the flash drive and queued a file labeled Combs West 2016 private.mp4. No one knew what was coming. Then came the voices. First Diddy, then Kanye. And believe me, what played next didn't just alter the trial, it redefined what this trial was really about. 12 minutes of audio filled the courtroom, unbroken. No music talk, no studio scheduling. Just low-tone strategy between two of the most influential men in entertainment, discussing a woman named Layla, a property in Miami, and something Kanye called the insurance. The words were casual, cold. Diddy asked if she had been paid off. Kanye muttered, "We did what was needed." Some in the gallery leaned in. Others went pale. The prosecution submitted it into evidence. The defense objected, calling it contextless and inflammatory. The tape was authenticated, pulled directly from Diddy's encrypted backups, recovered during a March raid on his Miami studio. The recording had GPS metadata matching cell tower pings and the original file header. Forensics confirmed it was unaltered, but the judge overruled because he caught something in that audio everyone else had overlooked. The woman referenced wasn't a mystery for long. Journalists were the first to trace her back. They uncovered a sealed 2018 civil suit filed under the alias L.A. in Miami-Dade County. The details were chilling. A 24-year-old artist liaison claimed she was drugged and manipulated during a private industry event hosted by Diddy. Kanye West, she alleged, was briefly present that night. The case had been settled within months. No trial, no press, just silence. Now the NDA meant to bury her story was no longer bulletproof. With the leaked audio placing both Diddy and Kanye at the center of a conversation about her, federal prosecutors reopened Layla's case, submitting her old court filings into the new criminal proceedings. What emerged wasn't a coincidence. It was a pattern. The complaint described a high-end gathering at a Miami property, with Layla reporting gaps in memory, bruises, and confusion. Security footage showed her being led by unidentified men tied to Diddy's security team. Medical records from the following day confirmed traces of sedatives in her system. As pressure mounted, Layla's attorney confirmed she was now cooperating with federal investigators. She remained silent to the press, but her silence now held power, not fear. But before Diddy's lawyer could even align with Kanye West and craft a quiet defense, the case cracked open, revealing a path far darker than anyone had imagined. By the next morning, federal agents returned with more. During their digital forensic sweep of Diddy's Miami studio, investigators had unlocked a secondary vault, one hidden inside a security server routed through 2 shell companies. Inside were encrypted files, audio recordings, voicemail dumps, and surveillance camera feeds, all time-stamped, geotagged, and indexed. In one clip, Kanye could be heard again, this time saying, "We need fewer people in the room next time. That's how the intern thing happened." Diddy laughed. Another clip allegedly caught a third-party organizer explaining how to reroute payments from a music foundation into a personal settlement fund. Diddy's lawyer called the recording fabricated and taken out of context, until the prosecution fired back with a response that left the entire courtroom silent. The digital evidence was overwhelming. Metadata showed files edited within hours of certain media reports in 2016 and 2017. Some clips were labeled with initials of women known to have filed past complaints. One folder was literally named Fallouts. Prosecutors laid it out in court like a gallery of deception, everything dated, cataloged, and traceable. Tech experts brought in by the DOJ confirmed the chain of custody. These weren't fabrications. The voices, the timestamps, the device logs, all matched Diddy and Kanye's public schedules, cell data, and appearances. There were no alibis left to manufacture. And then suddenly a second woman's initials appeared in the voicemail batch. A third name was linked to a text thread between an anonymous assistant and a fixer. Some of the digital trails led to known associates. Others led to burner phones and private car rentals paid in cash. What began as a tape had now grown into a blueprint of an entire system designed to conceal high-profile misconduct. Back in the courtroom, Diddy's lawyers shifted tactics. No more objections to admissibility. Now, they claimed misinterpretation. "This is celebrity paranoia," one attorney told the court, "not conspiracy." But the words on the tapes told a different story. The planning, the payout orders, the strategy sessions, it was all there. Kanye's legal team issued a new statement. Mr. West categorically denies involvement in any criminal wrongdoing and has not been contacted by authorities. But legal insiders whispered a different truth. Subpoenas were already drafted. His name was in the vault. His voice was on multiple files, and his lawyer's phone was no longer taking media calls. But something still didn't sit right with the judge. So he ordered all remaining audio and digital evidence to be reviewed behind closed doors, in chambers. Select sessions would be made public. Others, the ones involving minors, vulnerable parties, or active NDAs, would remain sealed for now. But even with only 15% of the files entered into evidence, the narrative had changed. By the end of the week, federal investigators from the DOJ had begun issuing quiet inquiries to label heads, producers, and veteran executives, anyone with historic financial ties to either Sean Combs or Kanye West. Phone calls were made under seal. Meetings were canceled without explanation. And in boardrooms from New York to LA, lawyers were pulled from vacation. What started as a celebrity scandal had now triggered a compliance crisis. One major record label began reviewing all historic contracts associated with Diddy's Music Foundation. Another reviewed artist development deals that included confidentiality clauses written by the same firm responsible for Layla A's NDA. What prosecutors were beginning to paint was not just a pattern of abuse, but an entire infrastructure of silence, built and maintained by people in suits, not just stars with egos. And then one event in particular drew the government's attention. It was a 2015 mentorship retreat hosted by both Diddy and Kanye at a private estate in Sedona, Arizona. The retreat had been billed as a creative summit, no media allowed, NDA required for all attendees, and a vague promotional page that's since vanished from the internet. According to travel records subpoenaed from Jet Suite X and hotel logs, nearly 24 young artists, aged 18 to 25, were flown in under artist sponsorship grants. But no official footage from the weekend has ever surfaced. Capitol Records, which once co-sponsored the event, announced an internal audit. Universal Music Group quietly pulled archived promotional material featuring the two artists from their website, citing a temporary reevaluation. But insiders said this wasn't temporary. This was triage. Meanwhile, music managers across the country began issuing digital wipes, erasing photos, removing shoutouts, and quietly rewriting bios that once bragged about mentorships under industry titans. And then out of nowhere, a former studio engineer for Diddy took the stand under immunity. He didn't hesitate. In calm, steady tones, he testified that he had been asked, on multiple occasions to rename project folders, delete backup files, and clean metadata attached to internal audio logs. Most of it, he claimed, came during the months following the Miami event that involved Layla. He wasn't just told to erase things, he was told what to name them. Fall Mix, Promo Draft, and Event Reel were common titles used to overwrite more serious audio content. He told the court he suspected, but didn't fully understand, what he was covering up. But prosecutors did, because behind every folder was a story, and they had finally found someone willing to read the index. Next, a former assistant to a producer testified, confirming the presence of both Diddy and Kanye in unreleased security footage collected from a private studio in Calabasas. The assistant identified them by voice and gesture. But more than that, she described the nature of the meeting. Phones were placed in a basket at the door. Doors were locked from the inside. Diddy's lead attorney accused the prosecution of orchestrating a smear campaign through media leaks and emotional storytelling. Kanye's legal team filed a motion accusing federal agents of violating sealed evidence protocol. The prosecution pushed back, citing urgent public interest and material relevance. The judge didn't hesitate. He ordered emergency in-camera sessions, closed-door reviews of the most sensitive audio, before making rulings on what could and couldn't be shown to the jury. But the real explosion came when the next witness walked in. A former compliance officer from a luxury brand who had worked on a now-defunct charity campaign featuring both Kanye and Diddy, testified under subpoena. Her testimony wasn't emotional, it was clinical. She revealed internal emails, payment logs, and back-channel communications from 2016 showing that hush contracts were processed through third-party marketing budgets and misreported as branding investments. Her exact words, "We were laundering reputation, not money." That line echoed across the courtroom like a slap. And with that, the narrative reached beyond just artists and accusers. It entered the corporate realm, Fortune 500 partners, brand deals, PR machines. Every entity that had once posted a black square or promoted a charity collab now faced one question: what did you know, and when did you choose to stay silent? And just like that, the aftershocks began. The audio leak had cracked the courtroom, but now it was splintering the world outside it. The entire celebrity NDA system came under fire. Attorneys general in 3 states announced they were reviewing hush contracts signed with public figures across industries. Nonprofit watchdogs launched audits of celebrity-founded charities. One firm even issued a cease and desist against Kanye's team to prevent the release of a previously planned docuseries. Netflix, meanwhile, shelved a highly anticipated documentary about Kanye's fashion empire. The official reason? Editorial pause. But producers on the project leaked privately that the film featured interviews with executives now under federal scrutiny. Whistleblowers followed. Within a week, at least 4 former employees tied to either Diddy or Kanye's management companies came forward through their attorneys. Some provided emails, others gave copies of travel logs, employee rosters, and financial statements. One anonymous assistant turned over an entire encrypted drive containing schedule histories, video logs, and internal NDAs dating back to 2014. The DOJ quietly began building parallel case files, one for Diddy, and now, potentially, one for West. Legal analysts speculated that the court may bifurcate the trials, citing separate patterns of behavior and liability. Diddy's team was reportedly furious. Kanye's camp went silent. Publicly, fans were still divided, but behind the scenes, companies weren't. Multiple brand partnerships were dissolved in the span of 5 days. Press releases were rewritten. Social media bios quietly scrubbed mentions of both men. A once invincible empire was now radioactive. And if one leaked audio clip could shake a courtroom, what happens when the vault finally opens?